Kendra. I'm 12 years old and I'm presently studying in 8th standard. So today I'm going to explain to you about how rockets fly into the air. You might all have heard the idiom, it's not rocket science, is it? Well, let's just explore this world about how rockets deliver their payload or their cargo into space. So let's jump right into the topic. You see, rockets are two types. First, the normal rockets, you see them, they have the small payload, the orbit vehicles, they send satellites into space. And then there's the infamous space shuttle. It's not infamous, it's just famous. It is very, very nice. You might have seen it a few times, etc. It is American. So we will be discussing how these rockets work. First, the normal version, then the space shuttle. Both have two parts, two components. What I'm trying to say here is the first component of the rocket is the payload, or the thing which needs to be delivered into space. For example, a satellite in a normal rocket. And the rest of the rocket is just basically the fuel which takes the payload into space and into orbit. Now some rockets can also be launching the vehicles which go on expedition on Mars, etc. Those and rockets which launch satellites almost work the same. So I'm just going to teach you the basic fundamental principles of how a rocket works. So we're going to discuss a normal rocket. Normal rocket has its payload on the top and the rest are just fuel. There's two solid rocket booster fuels, and then there's the main engine liquid booster fuel. And then you see, when the rocket takes off, the solid boosters do the work and propel the rocket to a certain height, and after that height the solid rocket boosters detach from the rocket and they fall into the sea. The rockets are launched near the sea as to not have any collateral damage, because if they launched in urban area and the boosters fall onto the buildings or whatever, somebody is going to get hurt. You know the point, right? So they are launched near the sea so that nothing happens, and then the solid rocket boosters, they detach, then they fall into the sea. Then the main engine does its work. It just propels the rocket until the required height, and then stages separate until finally the mission is reached. Then the space shuttle. You see, the space shuttle has the liquid fuel tank and then the solid rocket boosters or SRBs. And then there's the shuttle. You see, when a space shuttle is launched, the liquid fuel, liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, goes into the space shuttle's engines and they burn. Now you see, rockets are governed by Newton's 3 laws of physics. Let's just talk about the third law, which you know already. Third law states that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, which means basically the hot gases will come out from the end and the rocket will go forward due to the thrust provided. The other law is the heavier the object is, the more energy it needs to go up into space or just move. So the rocket needs a lot of energy. So that's why it has liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. Why do they pack liquids? Because a liquid takes up less space than the gas. So when they actually go into the ignition chamber, they transform into a gas, but that's all too complicated. So let's just get back to the basic fundamentals. And then another law states that in order for an object to move, an external force must act on it. That's basically the first law. So an external force, which means the thrust. If the thrust acts on it, only then will the rocket fly. And if there is slight adjustment in the angles, it will turn. Okay. Now let us see how the space shuttle works. The solid rocket boosters fire after takeoff, and then the space shuttle engines also work, and the liquid fuel goes into the ignition chambers and the fire happens and everything, your combustion happens, and it takes off into space. And when it reaches a certain limit, just like the normal regular rocket, the SRBs, solid rocket boosters, detach and they too fall into the sea. Now after reaching even more height, the original fuel tank, it's there now, it also detaches, but it doesn't fall into the sea. It disintegrates in the atmosphere. It just burns up due to the atmospheric heat, due to the friction entering the atmosphere from that height. Okay, so the space shuttle, it has just that little fuel remaining to give that last push in order to complete its mission. Its mission is basically, sometimes it will, most of the times it was used to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. That is some iconic examples. So imagine this is the ISS. The fuel tank got us here, and there's extra fuel in the space shuttle. Not too much, just enough to give the space shuttle the final push to get to the desired location. Okay, so that's how rockets work. Thrust equals forward motion. So every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and then the external force, which is basically the hot gases or thrust, propels the rocket up into space. Now you might be asking me, why do the rockets go like this? They can just go like this now, or this. Well, that's because if they go like this, you see this is the Earth's orbit. If they go like this, they catch the Earth, the gravitational force, and then they can not waste less fuel. They can use less fuel and not waste more fuel in the process. If you go directly like this is the gravitational force. Basically, this is Mars. Just think this is Mars. You just have to go to this limit until the gravitational force starts pulling you. So we have to go like this to use minimum fuel. But if you just go like this or this or this, no, that won't work. You will be wasting a lot of fuel in the process. Okay, that's the basic fundamentals on how a rocket works. Okay guys, bye, have a great time.